So, dear students, today I'm going to discuss with you all about the rural-urban composition of population, and this topic is from chapter number 3, population composition, from the book Human Geography. Okay, so in our previous discussions, we have discussed about the sex composition and about the age structure as well as the age six pyramid. Okay, from this chapter. So the next topic, which is the rural-urban composition. Okay, it provides us information. Okay, it provides us information about the distribution of the population in the rural and the urban areas. So like we find that the people of the world, they does not live in a particular region. Okay, some of them they live in the rural areas, some of them they live in the urban areas. Okay, so this distribution of the population, okay, in the rural and the urban areas is the main matter of study, is the main subject matter of study under this topic, rural urban composition. Okay, so basically this topic, rural urban composition, it is going to provide us the information about the distribution of the population in the rural and the urban areas. Okay, and like why such unequal distribution is there. Okay, of population in the rural and the urban areas, that we are going to study. So the division of the population into rural and urban is based on the residents. Okay, so basically the people, okay, the population of a country is divided into rural population or urban population. Okay, depending upon the place of residence. Okay, depending upon the place of residence. Like in our previous chapters when we were discussing about human settlement and all, okay, like we discussed that the settlement patterns can be divided into two types: rural settlement and urban settlement. Okay, so what does rural settlement mean? Rural settlement means where the people are mainly engaged in agriculture, animal husbandry, okay, and mining, quarrying and all. Okay, and whereas urban areas basically refer to those areas where the people are mainly engaged in secondary and the tertiary activities. Okay, where most of the people, okay, they are engaged in the secondary and the tertiary activities actually. Okay, so depending upon the place of residence, okay, depending upon the place of residence, the population of a country or a region can be divided into two categories, that is the rural population and the urban population. Okay, so the people living in the rural areas, okay, who are engaged in the agricultural sector, in animal husbandry, or in mining and quarrying activities are known as the rural population. Whereas the people living in the towns and the cities who are engaged in different kinds of services, okay, who provide different kinds of services and or are working in the different industries actually, okay, they are known as the urban population. Okay. So this division is necessary because rural and urban lifestyles, they differ from each other in terms of their livelihood and the social conditions. Okay, so we need to study in details, okay, about this rural urban population or about the characteristics of the rural and the urban population, because the people living in the rural areas and the urban areas, okay, they differ. Okay, they differ in their lifestyle. Okay, there's a difference in the lifestyle of the people living in the rural and the urban areas. Okay, so this is why we need to understand, we need to study in details about the rural urban composition of population, which will provide us the informations about the livelihood of the people, about the social conditions of the people living in these two different areas, that is the rural and the urban areas. Okay. The eighth six occupational structure, density of population, and level of development, it varies between the rural and the urban population. Okay, so basically the age six occupational structure, okay, that is the distribution of the population, okay, in different age groups, okay, and as well as in different like males and females actually, okay, as well as the occupational pattern of the people, okay, that is the occupational pattern of the males and the females, okay, the density of the population, the level of economic development, it varies between the rural and the urban areas. So there's a quite difference. Okay, there are quite differences between the rural and the urban areas. Okay, about the different characteristics, okay, of population. So the criteria for differentiating rural and urban population, it varies from country to country. Okay, and the criteria for differentiating the rural and the urban population, it varies from country to country. Like in some countries, okay, we basically consider that the people, okay, like on the basis of the population. Like in case of India, if the population of any certain area is less than 5,000, okay, and most of the people are engaged in the rural areas, most of the people are engaged in agricultural sector, then we consider those areas as a rural area. Okay, so in the same way, in different countries, okay, there are different criteria, okay, for classifying the population, into rural and the urban, because there are some countries actually where the population is not so high. So in that case, okay, they classify the rural and the urban population on their basis actually, on different characteristics. Okay, but the main, okay, but the main criteria of differentiating the population into rural and urban is the economic activity. Okay, the types of economic activities the people are engaged in. Okay, so this, the type of the economic activity is mainly is the main criteria, okay, to identify the rural population and the urban population. In general terms, the rural areas are those where people are engaged in the primary activities, and urban areas are those when majority of the working population is engaged in non-primary activities. Okay, so in general terms, the rural areas are actually those areas where the people are engaged in the primary activities. Okay, where people, they are mainly engaged in the primary activities like agriculture, animal husbandry, rearing of the animals, mining, quarrying, gathering, and all. Okay, but whereas in the urban areas actually, okay, urban areas are those where majority of the working population, okay, when majority of the people who are working, they are engaged in the non-primary activities. Okay, and what are the non-primary activities? Such as working in the industries, okay, working in the different companies and all. Okay, like providing different kinds of services, the traders, the businessmen, and all. Okay, so this is the main criteria of differentiating the rural and the urban population. The rural and the urban differences in sex ratio in Canada and Western European countries like Finland are just the opposite of those in the African and the Asian countries like Zimbabwe and Nepal, respectively. Okay, so even there's a difference. Okay, even there's a difference in the sex ratio. Okay, in the sex ratio of people among the Western countries and the African and the Asian countries, actually. Like basically in the European countries, okay, we find that in people living in the rural areas, actually, okay, they are highly developed actually. Okay, technologically they are developed. Okay, they carry out the agricultural activities with the help of modern machineries and all. Okay, but whereas people in the African and the Asian countries, they carry out the agricultural activity with manual labors. Okay, so in the same way, okay, there's a vast difference. Okay, there's a vast difference in the sex ratio in the European countries and in the Asian and the African countries. Okay, so the rural and the urban differences in sex ratio in Canada and West European countries like Finland are just the opposite of those in African and Asian countries like Zimbabwe and Nepal, respectively. Okay, so basically in the Western countries, what we find is that the males, they outnumber females in rural areas. Okay, in the Western countries, try to understand properly. Okay, listen properly. In the Western countries, okay, in the Western countries, the males, they outnumber females. That means the males, they outnumber females in the rural areas. That means the number of males are more in the rural areas than the number of females. Okay, in the Western countries. In the Western countries, the number of males are more in the rural areas than the number of females. But okay, but in the urban areas, actually, okay, the females, they outnumber the males in urban areas. Okay, but in the urban areas, females are more than the males. Okay, females are more in the urban areas than the number of males. But if you see the case of India, if you see the case of Pakistan, Nepal, okay, or some other Asian countries, the case is totally opposite. In the rural areas of India, Pakistan, Nepal, or some other Asian and African countries, you will find in the rural areas, females are more. In the rural areas, females are more. But in the Western countries, in the rural areas, okay, males are more. Okay, and in India, Pakistan, and Nepal, in the urban areas, the males are more, females are less. Okay, but in the Western countries, females are more in the urban areas. So the situation is totally opposite actually. So why such variations is there? Why in the Western countries more number of males are there in the rural area, and more number of females are there in the urban area? But in the Asian countries like India, Pakistan, Nepal, more number of females are there in the rural area and more number of males are there in the urban area. So why such variations is there between the Western and the African countries, or between the Western and the Asian countries actually? Because in the Western countries, the agriculture is highly mechanized. Okay, in the Western countries, the agriculture is highly mechanized. Okay, so to run these machineries and all, okay, we require the male workforce. Okay, so the number of males are more in the rural areas, okay, who are carrying out the agricultural activities. And the females, okay, they are very much mobile actually, okay, like they are educated, they are free enough to migrate, okay, and in order to earn money actually, the females, they migrate to the urban areas, okay, in the Western countries. So this is why the number of females are more in the urban areas, okay, in the Western countries. So the excess of females in urban areas of USA, Canada, and Europe is the result of influx of females from rural areas to avail of the vast job opportunities. So if you visit the towns and the cities of USA, Canada, and other European countries, you will find that more number of females are there in the urban areas. Why? Because the females, they have migrated from the rural areas to the urban areas to avail the vast job opportunities. Okay, but in case of India, the condition is opposite. In case of Pakistan and Nepal, the case is opposite. More number of males, they migrate from the rural area to the urban area. But in the European countries, more number of females, they migrate from the rural area to the urban area. Okay, and on the other hand, farming in these developed countries is also highly mechanized and remains largely a male occupation. Okay, and on the other hand, basically in the European countries like USA, Canada, and the other European countries, okay, agriculture or farming is highly mechanized. Okay, they use the farm machineries, modern advanced farm machineries and all. Okay, to carry out the agriculture. Okay, so in that case, we require the help of the male workforce. Males are mainly required to run the machineries and all. Okay, so this is the reasons that the males, they prefer to stay in the rural areas to carry out the agricultural activity. Okay, whereas the females, they migrate from the rural area to the urban area, okay, to avail the job opportunities. Okay, by contrast, okay, in opposite, the sex ratio in the Asian urban areas remains male dominated due to the predominance of male migration. Okay, but in the Asian countries, okay, in the urban areas, the sex ratio is more favorable to the males. Okay, why? Because of male dominance. Okay, because more number of males, they migrate from the rural area to the urban area in the Asian countries. Okay, so this is why we find more number of males in the urban areas of India, Pakistan, Nepal, and the other Asian countries. Okay. It is also worth noticing that in countries like India, female participation in farming activity in rural area is fairly high. Okay, and it is also worth noticing that in countries like India, okay, like the participation of the females in the agricultural sector is fairly high. Okay, in our country, more number of females are engaged in the agricultural sector, and this is why more number of females can be found in the rural areas of our country. Okay, because the males, in order to earn some extra money, they migrate to the urban areas. Okay, so the females are mainly engaged in carrying out the agricultural activity. Okay, and moreover, in the urban areas, okay, in the urban areas of the Asian countries like in India, Pakistan, Nepal, and all, the shortage of housing, okay, high cost of living, paucity of job opportunities, and lack of security in the cities, they discourage women to migrate from the rural to the urban areas. Okay, so basically in the Asian countries, especially in India, Pakistan, Nepal, and all, okay, here the cost of living is very high in the urban areas. Okay, there is not so many job opportunities in the urban areas, and even there is a lack of security, okay, in the urban areas. So this is why the females, they does not want to migrate from the rural area to the urban areas in the Asian countries. Okay, but in the Western countries, that is not the case actually. Okay, in the Western countries, there are a lot of job opportunities and better security, so the females, they easily migrate from the rural to the urban area. So this is the reason that in the Western countries, more number of females are there in the urban areas. Okay, and in the Asian and the African countries, more number of males are there in the urban areas. Okay, so this is what about the rural urban composition of population. Okay, so basically the rural urban composition of population, it provides us information about the distribution of population in the rural and the urban areas. Okay, as well as the distribution of the male and the female population in the rural and the urban areas, okay, of the European, African, and the Asian nations.